It's July 15th, 2022, 8:41 p.m. It's been a while. My name is Kessie Ian Anderson, and welcome back to Heresiarch. Alright, in this video I'm going to take on some very controversial topics. I'm recording a late preface on this because what I'm talking about is pretty highly charged. And I edited quite a bit out. But just to preface it, I'm going to hit a little bit about Ukraine in the beginning and what's going on, the war over there, and what it actually is that's going on. But then I'm going to transition, no pun intended, into the 6 sexes of the Talmud and how the Talmud is literally the source information, the source document, the source religion pushing transgenderism in our society. My personal view on it all is if something happens organically, as in you've asked yourself a bunch of questions, you've looked into the mirror, you've searched your soul, you've made the decision about what you truly want, and then you go and pursue it, more power to you. But when it's marketed, when it's commoditized, when it's turned into an agenda, when it's literally you falling for a religion and religious doctrine, then you might want to ask yourself some serious questions. So the topic at hand is exactly that. The roots are religious. Everything going on with it is religious. You think you might be so, cutting edge, at the top of society, progressive. No, you're literally following religious doctrine. And personally, I'm very laissez-faire, I'm very hands-off, I'm very you do you. If you want to live your life on legendary mode, if you want to live your life however you see fit, that's on you if it's truly who you are. But there's a very inorganic push going on, and it is religious in nature. It is religious at its source. And that's when I get frustrated, is I am not a fan of religion. So hopefully what I have to say it'll definitely be new to you. And I do kind of come across a little frustrated in this because it's so demoralizing. But again, I don't care. If you want to live your life how you want to live it, do it. But stop socially raping me and trying to force me without my consent to have to see and acquiesce to things that I don't want to. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about Ukraine and then transition into the main topic. Thank you. First things first, let's go over Trump, Ukraine, this war. Boils down to one thing. Zelensky has blackmail on the DNC. It just comes down to when the president, Trump, was talking to Zelensky in his phone call. President Trump, I would like you to do us a favor, though, because our country has been through a lot, and Ukraine knows a lot about it. I would like you to find out what happened with this whole situation with Ukraine. They say CrowdStrike. I guess you have one of your wealthy people, the server, they say Ukraine has it. That's it. It's the whole point of Ukraine. As crazy as this is going to sound, you don't have to believe me. The DNC had to activate Putin as their last Hail Mary to save them. Putin is not playing their game. Zelensky has all the blackmail in the world on the DNC. He owns their server. He has all the secrets. They know it. He can ask for any dollar amount he wants, and they will pay it. That's Ukraine. That's what's going on. Yes, the DNC is making a lot of money off this because it's getting kickbacked. It's being shoveled into a whole bunch of different private funds, Swiss bank accounts, Cayman Islands, you name it. They've got money laundering from here to forever, not even counting Biden with Hunter, not counting Pelosi, not counting Kerry and Romney. It just is what it is. Zelensky has the server, and he's using it. And that's it. So they're hoping that Putin could have went in and cleaned house, but it's all theatrics, it's all theater. And what's crazy is all the New York Times, Washington Post, all the Mossad media, they're crying all they want, but it's all to run cover for the idea that's unbelievable to anybody that Putin was a puppet of the DNC. But he's not anymore, so we'll see what happens. Time is ticking.
I'm going to play this in Legendary instead of Heroic. Have mercy on my soul, please.
Alright, now to jump into the point of the video that I'm making, and that is Judaism and transgenderism. Nobody accepts this, nobody understands it very well. Very few understand it, but as I've said from the beginning, this whole thing is a religious war, and it's a war that we're losing because we have no clue who the enemy is. What we are looking at is the Noahide Laws and the Talmud. So I'll do a quick recap for those of you who do not know what the Noahide Laws are. The theory is, now this is according to them, and I accept their theory more than I do, even though I can take the Old Testament and prove the Christian aspect as correct about the Ten Commandments, it doesn't matter. They don't have them legislated the way the Noahides, Chabad Lubavitch, Judaism has the Noahide Laws legislated into our body of law. Quick recap goes like this. Moses came down from the mountain after he led the Israelites out of Egypt, the Hebrews out of Egypt. Moses was on Mount Sinai multiple times, approximately total 83 to 85 days. While he was there, the story says he spoke with God. He came down with a first set of tablets, saw that the Israelites were worshiping the golden calf, took those tablets and dashed them on the ground. According to Chabad Lubavitch, Judaism, the Noahides, these were the Noahide Laws. There are 7 of them. They were first commemorated in 1978 as Education Day of Sharing with Jimmy Carter. And subsequently, every year after that, every single president of the United States, every year after that, has signed proclamations reinforcing the Noahide Laws. And the Rebbe Menachem Mendel Schneerson. Fast forward until 1991 with George Herbert Walker Bush. House Joint Resolution 104 to designate March 26, 1991 as Education Day USA. Now, when I say this is a religious war, it is a religious war that we are having our hands tied behind our back. We have no idea how it's functioning. We have no idea how it works. Those who do figure it out, myself included, are now vilified, attacked, censored, and removed from social media. I am banned off Twitter. I am locked out of my Facebook account. I have very little access. After this, I wholly expect YouTube to remove me. Why do this? Well, apathy is suicide, and I will not bear the blame. So I am washing my hands by getting this information out there, as limited as it is a small drop in the bucket as it is, but it makes me have a cleaner conscience. I'm no saint. I have my own issues. However, they are not to subvert or destroy what I love and care for. So the Noahide Laws, everything that we are living currently right now, is prepping and gearing for their public revealing. Hugo Grotius in 1600s added the Talmud as the basis for our law. So when everybody says we are a Judeo-Christian nation, no, we're based on Talmud information. And because they've infiltrated and they own the school system, they own the Federal Reserve, they own Hollywood, they own the media, they own big tech, Silicon Valley, you name it, they control it. Therefore, they can instill their religious doctrine right in our faces, say it's secular, say it's state-ran, and we will think nothing of it. Now in a whataboutism, everybody attacks Christianity. We are separation of church and state. Okay, well, if that's true for Christianity, we need to make that true for Judaism, who currently literally controls all of academia. All of academia. What's happening now? Transgenderism is on overdrive. And transgenderism is 100% a religious doctrine. So these people are being religiously indoctrinated through psychology. Research John Money and read the story about how transgenderism came onto the scene. A gentleman with the last name of Diamond discredited all of John Money's information, destroyed it, proved it was fake and a lie. But this was in the 60s, and there was no internet, and he was on the wrong side of the power structure that controlled everything, all the communism. So for those of you who don't know, Judaism is literally communism. That is the political manifestation of Judaism, is communism. And because McCarthy, who was 100% correct and absolved in the Venona cables, when the NSA, a general, took and cracked a bunch of Soviet cables that went to the Rosenbergs and other communist assets, and it proved that not only was McCarthy right, he was not even far enough right. But history is written by the winners. History is written by those who control the narrative. History is written by those who control the megaphones. That doesn't mean the winner is right. So, House Joint Resolution 104, designate March 26, 1991 as Education Day USA. Noahide Laws were put and became law on our books. Sponsor was Representative Michael Robert, Republican, Illinois. Introduced January 31st of 1991. So the 7 Noahide Laws. So the sad thing is there's one religion almost nobody knows about. After 9/11, the religion that was on everybody's mind was Islam. And what's crazy when you actually know the actual story and put the pieces together of 9/11, Islam is basically the only innocent group. CIA Mossad framed Tim Osman as the culprit. Tim Osman was the CIA name for Osama bin Laden. Some dude in a cave in Afghanistan orchestrated that here in the US. No. But that's for a different time. So from House Joint Resolution 104 to designate March 26, 1991 as Education Day USA up to 2022 with Joseph R. Biden as president, they've commemorated the Noahide Laws. And in 2018, maybe even 2019, 2020, 21, 22, I just haven't looked yet because I didn't want to care. But in 2018, every single governor of every single U.S. state commemorated the Noahide Laws. But what does that mean? Oh, it's just symbolic. It's just whatever. Oh, it doesn't mean anything. Oh, really? It doesn't? If it's written down, if it's in textbooks, if it's in any form, that is leverage that they can use. So it's kind of a demoralizing topic, highly demoralizing, because we have nobody interested in fighting. Everybody talks about, well, Ron DeSantis is going to run for president and go for, try to take place of Trump, who Trump literally, even though facetiously, he fulfilled his karmic debt and he declared himself king of Israel. Though it was jokingly, it's still a fact that he said it. And that's all he had to do was get it out into the public lexicon. Ron DeSantis, governor of Florida. Why would the governor of Florida fly to a foreign country to sign legislation that affects us here? It's all so tiresome. So, how does the Talmud, how has this transgender movement pushed so hard? Again, look into John Money, look in the history, look up psychology and psychiatry, how that's tied to the Judaic doctrines of the Zohar. I'm not going in depth in all those because sources at this point, I can give you all the sources in the world. People don't care. But I have the sources, but I'm not going to take the time to bring them up yet. But I am going to show you the sources for how there are 6 sexes in the Talmud. I knew something was wrong when I came across Adam Kadmon. Adam Kadmon is the primordial man. It was not Adam, as in Adam and Eve. It was this entity, this androgyne being, which already set the stage for transgenderism. But Adam, Kadmon, primordial man, according to Judaic, Talmudic, Kabbalah doctrine, whatever, was the closest perfection to God, kind of like a middleman, an intercessor, and in between. And so when God made Adam and Eve, he split it in half. This androgyne being had a male and female face joined at the back. Story goes by the rabbis that when God split it in half, whatever this thing was, that's why men and women, their spines have bumps on them, because when he used a saw to do it, it gave them the bumps on their back. Interesting stuff. Now, let's get into what does the Talmud and rabbis have to say about the 6 sexes in the Talmud and part of the Talmud known as the Mishnah. Now, to recap again, the Babylonian Talmud, the holy book that you've never read or looked into, 6,200 plus pages. And there's even 2 versions. One is the Yerushalmi, which is the Jerusalem Talmud, and then there's the Bavli, which is the Babylonian Talmud. Anytime there's a contradiction between the two, they always default to the Babylonian Talmud, because the Babylonian Talmud was further from Roman influence. So, there are 6 sexes talked of in the Talmud. And I'm going to not pronounce these correct because I don't speak Hebrew. And personally, I think that's by design, that they don't want information out. Because once you understand the game, once you've put the puzzle pieces together, only thing that's left is to be attacked. Because it's all written. It's all down. They have it right in front of our face. We're just too lazy to look it up. But then those that do look it up are now the bad guys. If somebody else can put a better narrative together and put the pieces together without using 10 degrees of Kevin Bacon, I will accept that. But since nobody can, nobody does, nobody takes the time to do it, I have to use my own resources. And I've read through the Quran multiple times. I've read the Old Testament, New Testament, raised Mormon. I read the Book of Mormon way too many times. Read the Doctrine and Covenants, Pearl of Great Price, all of the canon of Mormon doctrine. But now, it finally led me to the Talmud. I was like, what the heck? I've read so many other, the Vedas. I've read a ton of Buddhism. I've read so much stuff that just leads you down other stupid rabbit holes of belief and indoctrination. But then they don't have the power. They're not the power. So let's find the book that is the power, and it's the Talmud, and all of its subsequent commentaries and sub-books that rabbis have put together. There's thousands of them. You'll never be able to do it. So we can only hit pieces. But here we go. The 6 sexes in Judaism. Nekeva, Zachar, Androgynos, Tumtum, Elonit, and Saris. Zachar. This term is derived from the word for memory and refers to the belief that the man carried the name and identity of the family. It is usually translated as male in English. Nekeva. This term is derived from the word for a crevice and probably refers to a vaginal opening. It is usually translated as female in English. So that's the 2. That's as far as it goes for those who are raised in a traditional environment. I'm not saying tradition is the most important thing, but when something's kind of worked for however long our lie of history has been, it's kind of kept order, it's kind of kept a social society normal to be subjective. And if that offends you, I apologize. I do not apologize. There's a reason why the family is the center and should be upheld at all costs, but it's not. So let's get into the other 4. And they even go as far as to say there are possibly 7. So now in the LGBTQRSTUV movement, I have no problem with any of it, as long as it was kept private. But now that it's taught publicly in public schools, and now the religion is pushed, there is no separation of church and state. Everybody looks at that, and the smokescreen is Christianity. Oh, Christians this, Christian that, Christian that. My feelings are hurt. Well, at least that's all that's happening, is your feelings are being hurt. However, when actual Judaic doctrine is being pushed to such a degree that we have to legislate defense against it, there's something wrong. That is there needs to be the separation of church and state. It needs to work always. So if a Christian can pray, a Christian can't get upset when a Muslim prays. When a Muslim prays, Muslim can't get upset when a Satanist prays. And when a rabbi says little Noahide Law prayer in front of everybody, nobody else can get mad about that. That's the price we pay. That's freedom. But also there should be freedom from religion just as much as freedom of religion. The government's supposed to play a neutral role, but it's not. Courts have been weaponized. Everything's been weaponized. So, let's get back to this. Androgynos. A person who has both male and female physical sexual characteristics. 149 references in Mishnah and Talmud, 1st through 8th centuries CE. When that was put together, 350 in classical midrash and Jewish law codes, 2nd, 16th century CE. According to Rabbi Meir in the Mishnah, it is a unique creature, neither male nor female. Now, I don't believe in democracy. If you look up democracy, that's mob rule. 51% can tell 49% what to do. If that 59% is the mob and ignorant and uneducated, chances are they can run roughshod over the 49%. Just because everybody tells me 2 + 2 = 5 does not mean I'm going to accept it. I will be the one voice screaming into the void that it's wrong. Tum-tum is the next one. T-U-M, T-U-M, tum-tum. Maybe it's tum-tum, I don't know. A person whose sexual characteristics are indeterminate or obscured. 181 references in the Mishnah and Talmud, 335 in classical midrash and Jewish law codes. Rabbi Meir contrasts it with the androgynous, saying it is not a unique creation, sometimes a man and sometimes a woman. Now going back to what I was saying about democracy. A bunch of people think that there's this thing called the tyranny of the majority. Well, there's also tyranny of the minority. And when I say minority, I'm talking about the numbers involved. I'm not talking about racial groups. So tyranny of the majority is when you have a 51 outweighing the 49. Well, we are a republic. If you understand what a republic is, it is the law. But when our laws are subverted and destroyed and do nothing for us, they don't protect us. Now, the reason why I bring up this is because of the idea of exceptions. Okay, there are exceptions to people being born with certain defects, people being born with both male and female parts. Fact, proven. But I will argue for the tyranny of the majority this time, because if you base your entire society on less than 10% exceptions, you're not going to have a good time. If you focus on only exceptions, you can find an exception to literally everything. So I'm not going to waste my time with Reddit and social justice nonsense to pilpul, P-I-L-P-U-L, an excuse to defend something that is so minuscule. Oh, but what about your value? I'm not my brother's keeper. I give people value, but I will also sacrifice my pet ideals for my other more weighted ideals, if any of this makes sense. So if you want to attack what I just said, feel free, but hopefully you can look at the bigger picture of what I'm talking about and it's understandable. I'm probably not articulating it correctly. Now let's move on to the fifth. Alonit. A-Y''L-O-N-I-T. A female who does not develop at puberty and is infertile. 80 references in Mishnah and Talmud, 40 in classical midrash and Jewish law codes. Now there's more to Alonit as well. I'm just giving you a brief overview about why they would look at that as its separate sex. Now we get into Saris. This is for males. A male who does not develop at puberty and or subsequently has their sexual organs removed. Now understand, the Talmud is the home of slavery. When you're awoke to the Talmud and you finally look into history with new eyes, you will understand some serious, massive whitewashing and destruction of history in terms of the slave trade. And who was the impetus? Who was the catalyst? Who was the power behind all slave trade? And there's a reason why sexual organs were removed for certain people to guard princesses as eunuchs. But let's continue. A saris can be naturally, which is saris hama, or become one through human intervention, saris Adam. Adam is kind of synonymous for man-made. There's 156 references in Mishnah and Talmud, 379 in classical Midrash and Jewish law codes. So again, saris Adam, that is literally a man going into having surgery to remove those body parts. Whereas saris hama just means you were born with an issue. The following can be found, the previous that I just read can be found on Wikipedia, Gender and Judaism, if you do a research. Now to continue on, this is from Wikipedia. Jewish law, halakha, recognizes gender ambiguity and has done so throughout Jewish history. There you go. The transgender movement has a home in Judaism from the beginning. However, unlike the modern concept of gender identity, now they try to distance themselves, this ambiguity is defined according to physical presentation, or lack thereof, and primary and secondary sexual characteristics. The concept of a tumtum being a person of ambiguous gender and or sex is dealt with, as is the concept of the androgynos being a person characterized with elements of both genders. These concepts have precedent dating back to the beginning of Jewish thought. Then there's a bunch of references. Well, the one that stood out was Sefaria.org. So I went to Sefaria and I looked up what they had to say about some of the genders. Now they go into depth. Now, here we go. Let's read this, Sefaria.org. The Halakha recognizes 6 or 7 sexual identity categories: male, saris, 2 types, androgynous, tumtum, elonit, and female. This sheet gives the Rambam's succinct definitions of those categories. Rambam, I believe, was some high up rabbi. I haven't researched the guy out. It's all so tiresome. Illustrates that the non-binary categories weren't considered exotic or disastrous, with Midrashim associating them at Adam, Abraham, and Sarah, as well as a Midrash giving what sounds like a trans identity for Isaac. Finally, 2 halachot illustrate a rabbinic awareness that gender expression follows local custom, i.e. is socially constructed. The rabbinic, halakhic, and midrashic tradition wasn't liberal in the modern sense with regard to these issues, but it does provide an impetus for a Jewishly rooted mind-opening with regard to sex and gender, thanks to others who have posted source sheets on these issues, particularly Abby Stein, whose translation I quote, and whose sheet pointed me to some of the other texts. And now this is Hebrew. This is from Sefaria. This is from the Talmud, Mishnah, Torah, Marriage, 2:13-14. So in the Talmud, this is what they say. This is about the saris, the male. This is what their rabbis say when they're trying to discuss somebody who is a male or started as a male. And these are the signs of a saris. He doesn't have a beard. His hair is weak. His flesh is smooth, hairless. His urine doesn't make foam. And when he urinates, it doesn't form an arch. And his semen is thin. And his urine doesn't ferment. And he washes in the rainy season without his flesh producing steam. And his voice is weak. And he can't be identified as male or female. Okay, this has major signs of Old Testament nonsense in it. In fact, when I read stuff like this, I get disgusted personally. This preoccupation with literally shit that doesn't matter. Now let's move to 14. And such a saris is everywhere called Sris Hamah. Again, Saris Hamah, son Saris, that's someone who, son is in S-U-N, that's somebody naturally born that way. So you just kind of have more of an effeminate man, I guess, who doesn't have a powerful prostate. Jesus. And such a saris is everywhere called saris haman, but a male whose member or testicles were cut off or removed or crushed, as the idolaters do, is called saris Adam, man-made saris. So, as slavers cut off a male's penis or testicles, that is saris Adam. But then they have to throw in, as the idolaters do, not us. So that's one of them that has now infiltrated one of the doctrines that are now massaged and nuanced and brought into colleges. Call me the bad guy for finding this out. I'm just the messenger. Shoot me all you want. Don't care. So this is the female. Mishnah, Torah, marriage, 2:6. I don't read Hebrew, so I got to read the translation. And these are the signs of an Elonit, if she doesn't have breasts and or has difficulty during intercourse. Her lower abdomen isn't like a woman's. Her voice is rough and she can't be identified as male or female. Well, when you look into the Talmud and you read further into it, pedophilia is promoted. Pedophilia is condoned. Pedophilia, if the girl is 3 years and 1 day, intercourse is not a problem. It's like the hymen will repair itself, according to a rabbi. It's like poking your eye with a finger. So, Elonit, why wouldn't she have breasts? Why would she have difficulty during intercourse? How old is the person they're talking about? Oh, but the voice is rough and can't be identified as male or female. Well, yeah, when you're tortured and beat and you're just a slave, a sex slave, what happens then? What happens when, let's say you have, and if any of you were parents, 2, 3, 4-year-old, terrible twos, a kid loses his mind over something and you try to calm him down, you hug, kiss, bribe with treats, try to keep the kid calmed down, and anything you do doesn't work. And then the kid's voice gets hoarse. Oh, well, I don't know if that's male or female. That's the sickness that the Talmud promotes. Now it's been massaged, it's been nuanced, it's been manipulated, it's been silently, covertly crammed into society, and it's been taught to people. It's marketed. It's marketing. How many people have been duped to buy something through marketing? How many people have been told something, got their hopes up through marketing? Well, now that you have public education systems, universities, which are nothing but synagogue teachings, period. That's what all the gender studies are. Look up who founded the feminist movement. And I am in many ways very pro-feminism to a degree. I'm very laissez-faire when it comes to sexuality. What somebody does in their own home is none of my business. So, for example, if you're of age, if there's no coercion, if there's no abuse of power, if there's no anything, it's none of my business. I don't care. It doesn't concern me. Same with transgenderism. I don't care. But the problem is, it's being marketed. It is being pushed. It is now in schools purposefully. Why? Well, it is the fulfillment and manifestation of the Noahide Laws. There's a reason it's under Education Day of Sharing. Education is the key word. They're controlling the textbooks. Ghislaine Maxwell's father, super spy Mossad agent Robert Maxwell. He had a publishing company. He sold it to some more of his cabal friends. They're the ones that now have the public school books for colleges and many other places. All of the curricula is designed by these people. So there it is. It's in the Talmud. 6 sexes. Sometimes 7. I don't know what the 7th one is. I haven't looked into it further. I'm assuming it has something to do with Adam Kadmon again, the primordial man. But I can't prove it. But that's where it's coming from. That's where it is. It is, if anybody tells you has nothing to do with Judaism, it is a bald-faced lie. Not only is it is an integral part. Look at Hollywood. Look at what they have to do for the people running Hollywood. If you don't know who's running Hollywood, you're blind, or you're deliberately lying to yourself, or you just don't care. And a lot of people, I get it. What do I care? What does it matter if I know this stuff? Well, again, apathy is suicide, and I will not share your blame.
Shoot 'em once. A boot into the face, the dream that fills your night. Decades later, it seems George Orwell might be right. Your dead polemics have sent millions to their graves. Despite your army, still will never be your slaves. Goodbye. Goodbye. Shoot 'em once. Goodbye. 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 Techno jihad. Electronic. Holy war. Techno jihad. Burn the system. To the core. Techno jihad. Hear the angry. Voice